A man is carrying a zombie through the forest. They play together every night, overcome challenges together, and even fight bears. To learn more about the story, let's go back to a few days ago. Hank Thompson is a man marooned on an island in the Pacific that has sent dozens of SOS messages on bottles and little boats made from trash to no avail. One day, tired of the hunger and the loneliness, he decides to hang himself while humming a song his mother taught him not to overthink things. When he's about to jump, however, he notices a body wash up on the beach and decides to go check on it to see if it's alive. But by moving, he accidentally ends up hanging himself and he struggles with the rope until it breaks. Hank rushes to the body and checks its vitals, tries chest compressions as well, but the only reaction he gets from the body is it expelling gas as a side effect of rotting. Feeling rather disappointed, Hank tells the body that when he put the rope around his neck, he had hoped to get his life flashed in front of his eyes and find some meaning in it, but he only saw this rotting man that keeps breaking wind while he speaks. Hank decides to take the body's belt and use it to try to hang himself again, but he can't help getting distracted by the body again. As the waves take it away, its gas propels it around on the water. Getting an idea, Hank runs to it, puts the rope around the body's neck, and gets on top of it to ride it across the seas like a jet ski. Eventually, the speed makes him fall to the bottom of the ocean and he loses consciousness, only to wake up hours later on a mainland shore. Finding a sealed bag of cheese puffs gives him hope to find civilization. So he takes out his cell phone and turns it on, but there is no signal, so he turns it back off to save the low battery. It's time for him to enter the forest and find help, but he feels bad about leaving the body behind after it helped him. So Hank begins dragging it with him, tolerating the sound of the constant flatulence on the way. As they get deeper into the forest, Hank begins finding trash left by humans, which means they're going the right way. He keeps a jacket and a Sports Limited magazine, and the cork he finds he puts it up the body's rear so it won't expel gas anymore. When night falls, it starts raining, so they hide inside a cave, which Hank only occasionally leaves to drink from a plastic cup that he's left outside collecting water. Sadly, he can't sleep, and since he still can't remember the lyrics to his mom's song, he starts making them up himself. Eventually, he falls asleep, not noticing that runoff rain falls inside the body's mouth all night long. When he wakes up in the morning, he sees a raccoon putting its mouth on the bodies and tries to catch it to eat it, but the animal runs away. Getting frustrated at getting no progress in finding help, he decides to leave the body behind this time, but he changes his mind when he notices water coming out of the body's mouth. He fills the cup with it and forces himself to drink it by ignoring how disgusting it tastes, and when he needs more, he simply needs to press the body's chest. After expelling lots of water, the body begins making noises with its actual mouth, and using those noises as inspiration, Hank decides to call the body Manny. He moves Manny's mouth and presses his chest, trying to get him to talk, but only mumbling sounds come out and Hank gives up. That is until Manny suddenly begins talking on his own, using proper words and even singing the made-up lyrics. Hank freaks out and punches him before running away, only to return with a large stick in case he needs to defend himself. Manny, however, still can't move. It's only his mouth that works, so Hank isn't in any danger. He isn't sure if this is a miracle or just a hunger hallucination, but he's happy to have company now, even if Manny doesn't remember his old life and can't understand basic concepts like home or life. After feeding him cheese puff dust to see if it can spark some memories and failing, Hank begins using the trash scattered around the forest to teach Manny all about human society, even building toys with it. Manny's childlike and shameless interpretations of some intricate concepts make Hank reconsider what he considers to be proper behavior, and it also gets him to admit he got lost after running away from home. Manny reaches the conclusion that Hank wants to find love, but he ran away because nobody loved him, which he believes to be quite contradictory. They leave the cave so Hank can try to get a signal on his phone again, and while wandering around the forest, he finds some berries which he eats, only to throw up minutes later. While Hank's busy with that, Manny stares at the pictures of women in bikinis on the Sports Limited magazine, but he doesn't understand what is the point. So Hank begins telling him a made-up romantic backstory for the girl on the page. Hearing this story gets Manny's heart beating again and causes him to have a heart-on that moves on its own. It disappears if Hank takes the magazine away and returns when he puts it back. But most importantly, if Hank moves Manny around, his crotch will still point in the same direction, which means it can be used as a compass. The pair gets on the move again, powering Manny's compass with the magazine to find the right roads through the forest. After a couple of hours it stops working though, so Hank explains to Manny more details about human intimacy, even admitting he doesn't touch himself since he was a kid and his father found him on the act. His dad told him that self-stimulation shortens your lifespan to scare him into not doing it again, and his mother took the chance to make a joke in bad taste about it. This has traumatized Hank, who now can't touch himself without thinking about his mom, so he simply doesn't even try. Some moments later, while exploring the forest again, Hank slips on a big pile of dump, and falling on the ground causes the phone in his pocket to turn on. There's also some growling coming from among the trees, and judging by the size of the dump, Hank thinks something big and dangerous is out there. When he hears it coming closer, he tries to drag Manny away and they end up tripping and rolling down a hill. Hank's phone falls from his pocket and Manny sees the lock screen, which is a picture of a beautiful woman on the bus that causes his heart-on to return. Hank quickly takes the phone away and turns it off to save battery before going back to trying to climb back to the forest or at least finding food. But all the while, Manny keeps asking to see the picture again, believing the phone to be his. He tells Hank that maybe seeing this woman can help bring his memory back and that in return, could also help them find civilization. So Hank accepts using trash and leaves to dress up like this girl. Hank is nervous at first, but Manny thinks he looks beautiful in costume, and just seeing him like that is enough to make him talk better. So Hank decides to go all out with this plan. Using more trash and nature parts, he builds a fake bus, and he teaches Manny how to talk to women, telling him how amazing this girl was, and how he would love to spend his life with her, which is what Hank really feels, and he's now making Manny believe they're his own thoughts. Hank never dared to talk to her. He only took a picture, and he doesn't want Manny to make the same mistake. The plan begins to work and Manny remembers the girl is called Sarah Johnson, which gives Hank hope. He continues to build sets to teach Manny about dating, movies and partying, always dressing as Sarah. These fake dates allow them to bond and they even start holding hands. One evening when Manny accidentally chokes on some food he's been fed, Hank uses the Heimlich maneuver and discovers a new ability of Manny's, shooting things really far with his mouth. He builds a hook and shoots it with a rope using Manny's mouth, and now they can finally climb back into the forest. The pair continues their exploring to find help, only stopping at night to build more sets to go on fake dates on. Hank starts using Manny for other things, like his mouth shooting becoming a great weapon to kill animals for food or even a shower, and his stiff limbs are capable of chopping wood. One night, they find a bottle of vodka in the trash, so they have a party and get drunk. Manny tells Sarah that she's the one and that he wants to make her happy, and while having a sweet moment they almost kiss, but Hank interrupts it before it gets weird. Eventually, the pair finds a cliff with a river and the only way to cross it is to walk on some pipelines that could serve them as a bridge. It's still very dangerous though, so Hank double-checks that it is the right way by awakening Manny's flesh compass with Sarah's picture. This is indeed the only way, so Hank ties Manny to his back and starts crossing it by crawling. He's already pretty nervous about it and his mood only gets worse because Manny doesn't shut up. He keeps talking about how awkward things have been between them since the night they almost kissed, but Hank doesn't want to talk or think about it. Suddenly, part of the pipes breaks and they slip, only managing to hang on the bridge because their clothing gets stuck on a piece of metal. Manny realizes he's feeling fear for the first time because if he died, he thinks he would really miss Hank. At that moment, the piece of metal holding them finally breaks and they fall into the river. Hank can swim, but Manny begins sinking, so Hank goes after him and remembering all their fake dates together, he kisses him underwater, causing Manny to smile. In order to get out of the river, Hank removes the cork he had put up Manny's rear and lets his gas expel them up. They land on the shore and Hank uses Manny's abilities again, this time shooting the hook with his mouth to get back on the pipelines. They cross safely to the other side and when night falls, Hank starts a fire with Manny's gas as well. When he asks him about who may be waiting for him at home, Hank tells Manny that his mom is dead and he hasn't talked to his father in years, so he doubts he's worried about him. Manny thinks not expressing your feelings is dumb, so when he reunites with Sarah, he'll tell her all his feelings and show her his gas as well. Hank explains people don't break wind in front of other people, which makes Manny understand why he never does it in front of him. Society sounds like a very stuffy place that doesn't let you have fun, so Manny thinks perhaps they could stay together in the forest having their fake dates. Hank likes the idea, but first he takes a moment to relieve himself. When he turns on his phone, he realizes he finally has signal, so he checks social media and reveals he's been stalking Sarah, who actually has a husband and a daughter, Preston and Chrissy. Feeling guilty, Hank decides to confess the truth and tells Manny the phone is his and that Sarah was just a girl he saw on the bus every day and fell in love with, but never even talked to. Before they can discuss this properly, Manny warns Hank that there is a bear nearby, so Hank drops the phone and puts Manny in position to use his mouth shooter. However, when Manny sees the picture of Sarah with her husband, he loses all hope and his ability doesn't work anymore. The bear manages to hurt Hank's leg as he drags himself and Manny away. Since the animal isn't afraid of the branch with fire Hank grabs to scare him off, he instead puts it against Manny's rear and makes him break wind so that both of them are expelled up and land on top of a tree. At such height, they can see a route and even cars passing by, which makes Hank happy, but not Manny. He starts crying and philosophizing about having thoughts they shouldn't have to hide, wishing he was truly dead, and Hank's mind is overwhelmed with flashbacks that he blames Manny for. Hank is too shaken by these thoughts and slips off the tree, landing on the ground and further hurting his leg. The bear bites his leg too and starts dragging him away, so thinking he's going to die soon, Hank tells Manny one day their bodies will decompose into dump together, and that's beautiful. This inspires Manny to finally move on his own, so he falls off the tree and breaks wind on their campfire, creating flames large enough to scare the bear away. After thanking him for saving him, Hank passes out. He wakes up in the morning to find Manny dragging him back into civilization. And it's not just any neighborhood. They're coming out of the forest right into Sarah's backyard because Manny wants Hank to tell Sarah all the things he taught him. Hank is scared though, so he tries to get away, but Manny won't let him. The pair starts fighting on the grass, and that's how they're found by Chrissy, who thinks they're weird and asks them awkward questions. Manny explains they were lost in the woods and now they need help, and, trying to impress the girl, he shows her some of his abilities, but this only scares her and makes her cry. Sarah hears her and comes out, finding the two men and thinking they may be dangerous. But Chrissy quickly tells her mom that they need help, so Sarah goes back inside and calls 911. After she's gone, Manny confesses he didn't like the way they looked at him and realizes he cannot go on like this since he's just a corpse. So after asking Hank to never tell Sarah about his feelings, he dies. Cops and an ambulance arrive a couple of hours later, while the paramedics take care of Hank. The police officers check Manny's body and come to the conclusion that he wasn't killed by Hank. His wounds show that he most likely was another person that jumped off a bridge. They also think the phone is Manny's, so when they call Hank's dad, they tell him his son is dead and that he should come to recognize the body. When his dad arrives, Hank hides because he doesn't want to talk to him, but he's shocked to see how upset his father is to be unable to even glance at the body. While the police officers show Sarah the creepy pictures of her on the phone, a news reporter also arrives and tries to interview Hank, but he freaks out, clarifies the police has mixed their identities, and tells the world he's alive thanks to Manny. After apologizing to a disgusted Sarah for the pictures, he rushes to Manny's body and takes it away, ignoring all his father's warnings. Not wanting Manny to end up on a morgue and an unmarked grave, he takes him back to the forest and mounts him so they can slide down the hill together until they fall in the river. As Hank swims away with Manny, Sarah, her family, Hank's dad and the cops try to follow him and find all the sets Hank had built. And Sarah notices he even made the notebook she was using in the picture. Hank makes it to the beach and starts talking to Manny, wanting him to know how important he is to him and begging him to wake up. Manny doesn't react though, so the cops go ahead and arrest Hank, who decides to expel gas in front of everyone as a last tribute to his friend. Before they can leave, however, Manny starts shaking and expelling gas again, so the very surprised officers let Hank go closer and say his goodbye before the waves take the now smiling body away. The movie ends here. Goodbye and see you again.